Does anyone know why? You read it, right, Mr. Bell?
It's been a long time, but I need
Well,
to review it
you
again.
read it again,
There's
then.
some things that I do remember that
Yeah, I take a stab at it, but go ahead.
You can take a stab at it, whatever.
Well, the story talks about individual transformation.
You didn't put those together, did you?
Yeah, what's so?
No. I was trying to guess what I had one inside.
Hold on.
Yeah, yeah.
I got it. I got it.
All right. You were saying what now?
Then it's a story about individual transformation, some of the impediments, the barriers, ridicule, shame that a person may face, or in this case, an anthropomorphic story that Jonathan had to go through to get at the top of the skill level. He did not want to be among the masses. But he did try to, in that case, invoke the masses to try something different by practice.
That is, and what you're speaking about is pretty much the plot and the angle of the book. What I'm kind of curious about, though, is, did you read it?
Yes, sir.
Why do you think that I'm more or less adamant that people read this rather than getting all into Diop and these guys?
Yes, peace, God, peace, Lord.
Peace.
Simple,
It is something
teaches you to practice,
that teaches you that you should
good
practice.
practice. And what I liked about it the most is when Jonathan came back to the flock and he practiced in front of the flock, other than trying to go to the flock and bring them along. He just showed them the God in himself. That's what I liked about that book.
Good.
That's one of my favorite parts.
And that was also one of the angles being transmitted. But that's not what I'm actually asking.
Is it basically to instead of focusing on everything else that's going on out in the world or having a bunch of biases or things, you have to look within yourself and basically work on yourself before you can face.
I think it's one of the messages that is in the book.
But you said that's not what you're looking
That's
at.
not what I'm asking about. I'm asking, why do you think that I'm sorry.
Sorry, I just wanted to mention, one of the things that I got out of the book is that Jonathan discovered that most of our limitations are self-imposed.
Yes.
And so he, one step at a time,
That's right.
trying new things and practicing it to the, I don't know what level of perfection.
That's right.
But anything he wanted to do, especially those things he didn't see the flock doing, he tried. And he found out he could do a lot more than he ever thought he could.
And that is one of the main issues and focus in the book. Yeah. Did you read it? No. What do you think, DeMarcus?
I didn't hear the question.
Why am I so adamant about people staying away from reading all this real intricate intellectual material, and am adamant about they should just start with Jonathan? Why do you think I'm after folks doing that? And you have to understand, I hope, that I understand everything that everyone has said about the book and what's being projected in the book, and those are good thoughts. And I hope people get all of those thoughts. For what?
Yes, but I can say for me, if you ask that question directly towards me, it'll be for each person to look at themselves
Good.
and practice for themselves first before they start trying to help others or show others right information.
Well, that could be something that we could actually, figure out in the course of actually doing the work and reading Jonathan. But one of the main reasons that I'm really, me personally, adamantly opposed to people reading books that they can't possibly understand is because I know they can't possibly understand it. And I'm suggesting that you're wasting a lot of time and a lot of effort and energy reading books that there's just no possibility for you to be able to understand. And it seems like whenever I make that statement or I say that, people get offended. What you mean I can't understand? What you mean? I know what I'm looking at when I'm reading about the Sphinx and the Phoenix and what I know.
But I have an analogy that I'm going through personally right now. I picked up this book called Wall Street versus America. Now, I don't know nothing about Wall Street, and this book is written for the layman. At least it was written by a former Newsweek, not Newsweek, Business Journal reporter. And again, it's supposedly written for the layman. Well, I'm finding myself staying in the dictionary and on the internet almost 4 and 5 words and concepts per page for me to have to go and find out what the hell he's talking about.
That's right.
Because I have no mass of how Wall Street works. And for instance, I never knew this, but and when you and I think did you go to the thing about good dad? Did you go to the thing with
Rich Dad,
Rich Dad, Poor Dad? It was a seminar we went to, and I kept noticing every time this guy would even hint or infer something about investing, he would qualify. I mean, but then I come to find out, if you sue a Wall Street investor, that you can't even go to court, that they have, the Supreme Court ruled that Wall Street itself or the stock exchange sets up the arbitration.
That's right.
And picks the arbitrators. And this, in a particular case, he was referencing, the man lost $5 million. And he had the evidence that the man had the broker had given him bad advice. And on cross-examination, he, what's the term? Yeah, we use it all the time. He not perjured, but when a witness says something that draws impeached. Yeah, he impeached his testimony. It's proven. Yet the arbitration panel ruled against the claimant. And so, I mean, something simple like that, I had no idea. So I'm likening that to not understanding the fundamentals of language.
Well, what I'm suggesting to people is, see, for some reason, we don't want to go back and do the fundamental work that we should have been doing when we were the age of these children. We didn't get that. It didn't happen. And now, we feel like that's for babies. I don't need to do that.
Or it's too much to do.
But here's the thing. I am suggesting that a lot of what people gave their lives, information that they gave their lives to accumulate, and this information was accumulated over a long period of time and a lot of years, and sometimes multiple lifetimes. What makes anybody think that without knowing the basic fundamentals, that you're going to understand the conclusions that they arrived at during their lifetimes? This is beyond me. This is really weird to me.
The word that we understand. What would make me?
See, if you didn't get the basic fundamentals when you were this age in school, now all of a sudden here's a person like John Hendricks Clark who spent a lifetime and then had accumulated other lifetimes. He had accumulated into himself other people's lifetimes that they had spent accumulating information and knowledge. What makes, I'm just trying to figure out, what makes people feel that they can read something or even hear something on videotape that the man said, and they can understand what he was talking about? What makes a person think that? Ego can't do that.
There's
If ego
also-
is used in the wrong way.
There's also a dependency on others' conclusions, is what some of them believe. If I've been indoctrinated in the system, and this is the way I've been led to believe that I'm learning, when in fact I'm not, but if I have no comparison, how would I know?
So what you're telling me is that, I'm glad you're here.
Yes, sir.
What you're telling me is that over a long period of time, certain things actually have taken place that have large numbers of people, and I'm not saying any group of people, I'm not saying so-called black people, or anybody, just people, especially in this country, actually thinking that they know and that they can know without knowing.
I have a question, Dr. Black.
Uh-huh.
So how can you, how can one true what someone is saying when they present?
Have you bothered to teach yourself geometry? Well, if you haven't bothered to teach yourself geometry, ask yourself this question. How can you true the measurements for the doghouse that you're going to build for your puppy?
You got to get the mathematical foundation.
Well, then that answers the question. Did you understand his answer?
Yes.
That answered the question that you asked.
Mama.
That's how you do it. But see, here's what I'm getting at. Here's a whole group of people that failed geometry when they were going to school.
I did.
Now all of a sudden, the same group of people that failed geometry when they were going to school is now going to pick up a book by Diop or John G. Jackson, and they're going to read it, and they swear they understand what he was saying. Now, how's that possible?
I don't think it is.
It's not.
And also, I would not have the tools or modalities to understand.
Okay, now, I don't want this to get too far from what we're actually talking about. Okay, now look. Did you read Jonathan? Didn't you pick it up last week?
John? Oh, we talking about, yes, I have, but I have not finished it, no. I have not.
Well,
I've got,
well, you should finish it, all right? Now, I do think we should have some discussions about everything that all of you that said whatever you said about the book. We should have those discussions. I've been wanting to have that discussion for a number of years, but I have not been able to get people to really do the work with the book in order to have a discussion that I could be interested in. Yeah, see, in other words, if we have a discussion, I want to be interested in the discussions with everybody else. It's nice that you might be interested, but I don't necessarily like doing a lot of things that I'm not interested in. You know, sometimes we'll talk about different issues or subjects, and even though others are really getting something out of it, I'm not getting anything out of it. And if I'm not getting anything out of it, I'm not really that happy about doing it.
You'll be bored.
Okay, now, anyway, let me go back a couple of, to something. When we talk about self-determination, what are we talking about? Somebody want to give me an answer. In most cases, in the past, I'm not interested in what you learned. I'm interested in that moment in time, let's say 10, 15, 20 years ago, and you first heard the term self-determination. What were we talking about?
What were they talking about?
Okay, well, what were they talking about then?
The way it was presented, it was about a group.
Okay.
It was this group that I was related to of black people.
So now, at that time, did you engage in a discussion about self-determination where you thought it was about a group?
No,
You didn't.
no. I just accepted it. Is that I think the mission was we have to be we have to embrace like self-determination.
I understand. What I'm saying is at that time,
Yeah.
you didn't possibly at that time know what you know now.
No,
At that time, could you have thought that self-determination meant, before we go further, you were about to say something.
Well, yeah, I discussed self-determination also.
And?
But, like I said, years ago, there was a battle cry. I mean,
And?
self-determination. And my understanding of self-determination then was just the willpower to do.
Of who? The willpower
It was, now back then it was of the people.
of the people.
that's what I got.
Okay, that's what I was getting at.
Yeah.
All right. So then, since the two of you, I'm sorry.
No, when I think about self-determination, I think about individual.
Good, but then I understand. We're 15 years after, no, more than that.
It's more than that.
What, almost 30 now.
Yeah.
Maybe longer. Well, so let's say 40 years ago, and whenever you first started hearing about self-determination, how did you process the thought? What was it about? Who was it about? Was it about you as an individual, or was it about a group of people?
I'm thinking it's always been about an individual.
For you, it's always been about an individual. Good. Well, then that makes you an exceptional individual within this particular group, because the majority of people, have you ever, Brandon, talked about self-determination?
No, sir.
You never even had the discussion.
No, sir.
So you never went to Coochie Chocolate.
No, sir.
You didn't even go to Kwanzaa.
No, sir.
Oh, okay, so did you ever go to Kwanzaa or anything?
No, I didn't.
You didn't. You never went to Kwanzaa, nothing. What about you? You ever go to Kwanzaa?
I learned about it through playing sports.
Self-determination. What did you learn about self-determination through playing sports?
Coach will always say you have to push yourself in order to exceed in what you want to do.
So you learned about it like she did as that being applied to the individual.
Right, yourself.
Okay. All right. Did you ever get it confused with black people have the right to determine for themselves?
No,
So you never had that thought
no.
that black people had the right to determine as a group for themselves?
That was a thought. Yeah.
I did.
That was the thought that you got, but you never had that thought. You saying what now? Okay, no problem, no problem. See, because now, I think this is really good, because now what we're gonna find out is that we've all been coming through this for a period of time, everybody thinking that everybody else knows what everybody's thinking.
Or what the thought.
But now what we're finding out is that we weren't all thinking the same thing.
What's back to factor in different ages, different age groups.
I agree.
Some of these people are much younger than
I
me.
agree.
Yeah.
So, yes.
I'm just saying, even in my age group, when I heard self-determination, it was aimed at the collective, because somebody was talking to a
So
group.
now this is gonna get, I'm seeing real confusion, because now we got some young people that are talking about the collective group, and we got some older people talking about the individual, and well then what I wanna know, yes sir.
I just find it difficult, really, to think about the group
Mhm.
before we think about the individual.
I do also, and I like that I like that.
Now, we don't all have to be mechanics,
Mhm.
we be electricians, all those things, and this is all good for the whole.
Mhm.
So in developing oneself, you develop as a group.
That's right, no problem. And I understand that you just said, because that's really pertinent to what we're discussing. Yes, sir.
Yeah, but in the context like what me and Al talked about, Kwame Ture said individualism is a luxury we can ill afford.
So now we're going
This is the battle, right?
to get into the argument that developed out of the politics of this. In other words, the Negro politicians like Stokely, came along with their particular arguments, and they inserted that argument into the collective, and the way it got inserted was because the media wanted to insert anything that they were saying. Especially if they could say, well, he was saying something that's contrary to what Martin Luther was saying.
Absolutely.
All right? So they would insert it into what we would see and what we would read, the textbooks, the magazines, the movie shows, the TV shows, everything. Then our children, we were, as children at that time, we would see this and we wouldn't even know what was going into the brain. But it was going into the brain. And now what we're looking at is somebody presenting the argument where you see, as Negro individuals, we should behave and think as a collective. And I know that every year at Kwanzaa time, ever since they've been trying to insert Kwanzaa into the position of Christmas, there's been a big thought that this group of people is a collective. And I seem to remember some of you, when you first came in here, you were all talking about us black peoples.
Unity. Black power.
Huh? Oh, no, wait a minute. I'm not trying to say anything bad about you having that thought. That's not what I'm doing. All I'm talking about is some of us, around the same ages probably, had a thought that self-determination dealt with the individual, and some of us seem to have had a thought that self-determination dealt with the collective. In other words, when you were saying any thoughts about self-determination, you were talking about a group of people who were going to turn for themselves economically, politically, and they were going to actually grow a community together. Now, that's what I remember. So now, at the same time, I, like you, I was always having some problems when I was growing up because I couldn't figure a lot of stuff out based on the way everybody was talking about it. A lot of it just didn't make sense to me, And I remember when I used to see my partners standing on the corner in downtown Chicago, and they was talking about off the P, and they had a load of Black Panther papers in this arm, and black jackets on, and black berets. And see, we'd all grown up in the Arty home together. That's the keep children of jailhouse in Chicago. And here they a little older now, they were down for the peoples, and they was on the corner talking about off the P. And I used to see them on that corner, and I was trying to get over the side of the street, personally. And I tell the truth about it. I ain't lying. Most of the cats, like everybody talking about, like Fred Hampton and Mark Clark. See, I said I grew up with them in Arty home as children. You follow me? So now I do understand when they got shot by the police, why they got shot by the police. And at that time, as a young person, I was not about placing myself in a position to get shot by the police or anybody else. I was trying to keep myself out the position of getting shot about some nonsense. Now at the same time, even though I know they got shot about some nonsense, they were murdered in their sleep. I even know, as a matter of fact, you know what? One of the main people involved in the murder, the police detective, guess what organization he was a part of?
The Moore Science Temple.
Moore Science Temple, that's right.
Love Davis.
Yeah. You about to say something?
I was gonna, we're still talking about self-determination, right?
Yeah. Well, really, we're talking about Jonathan Livingston Seagull.
Okay.
Well, go ahead. Yeah.
Well, I understand there's a New African creed that we used to have to recite, years ago, and it said that, I believe that the fundamental reason our oppression continues is that we, as a people, lack the power to control our lives. And I believe in the community as more important than the individual.
Now, you understand, I remember when that was being taught, everywhere people came together like we're coming together right here. You know what I'm saying? When you would actually be around different things was happening when they were pulling community functions together, you almost had to, it was like saying out the Pledge of Allegiance before you got anything started. Talking about self-determination. All right, now, at the same time, you know, basically, in my situation, you know, because I listen to people all the time talking about, I had no dad, you know, and all that little nonsense. You know how, you know, so-called black people got the problem because they don't have dads, you know, and y'all know about that, don't you? Yeah, I don't have no dad. My dad didn't take care of me. And, you know, usually when I have my brother's children like that, I just try to tell them, aren't you lucky? You didn't have no dad.
That was strange stuff.
Huh?
I thought that was strange talk to them.
To most of the children it is, because they don't understand what I'm trying to explain to them when I say, I didn't have neither one. You know, so now I had to figure out a way to survive. By any means necessary, for real. I'm not talking, how old is he now? Oh, I had left home a year ago. I split a year ago. See, 10, I had split a year ago already. I ain't never been back.
Why?
Yeah, I split, 10, that's a year too long.
Why?
I had to leave. Now understand, ain't no collective trying to get me through nothing. And that's what I had to deal with as a young person. Wasn't no collective showing up, you know, when I woke up in the morning, the snow was out there. You know, when you try to get out this car, you're in a junkyard, and the only thing that's actually helping you is some junkyard dogs. They cover you up so you can stay warm when you go to sleep, you know, something like that. So I know nothing about this collective. I knew about one thing. I got to figure a way to wake up tomorrow. Now, so later on, I was having some problems with this whole collective thing. And I'm suggesting that a lot of us, without knowing that the collective psyche, the collective mentality, has been getting in without us knowing it. It's been getting into our children, it's been getting into us as children. And we didn't even know what's happening. But if you look around this room and listen to everybody, what you're hearing is different thoughts about the time, the way that it was happening, and how it affected different people. So there's been no collective psyche, and yet everywhere you look, there's all this material that's all based on a collective psyche. Now, at the same time, the people that are supposed to be studying about themselves have not shown me anything where they've studied anything about what is called human dynamics. You know, it says, when in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one, we can say man, people is what it says, man, that's good, to dissolve the bands, the political bands in that case, you know, with another, and to assume, that's what this article says, right? And I want everybody to study and learn, right? There's a reason I want people to learn. It's not just so you can remember something. Over a period of time, as you study this, you have to ask yourself the question, what is a human event? Burning.
The bomb dropped on Nagasaki.
Oh yeah, that is a human event, which is war. Birth. Well, no, birth is an activity that goes beyond humans, I think.
Natural.
What?
Natural.
That's a natural event. I want a human event.
So we know war, we know commerce.
Commerce could necessarily be a human event, and with commerce we want to deal with economics, finance, money, you know.
That's what happened to exchange.
Yeah, okay, no problem. Let's go. Keep going.
Weather manipulation?
Now, weather manipulation, I don't think we want to get into that because which weather manipulation are you talking about? You talking about when the little crop dusters used to go up and drop peels into the clouds? Seeds. That's what we call cloud seeds.
Yes.
Are you talking about that?
Something like the HARP project or something like that.
You talking about HARP? Wait a minute, before we talk about HARP, I would appreciate if y'all go watch our